What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another weather forecast here by H Weather Forecast. Hope you guys are all enjoying your Wednesday evening or afternoon. In this video, we're going to be talking about the tropics, and we really watch as tomorrow is the official peak of the hurricane season. We have Paulette and Rene, and we also have two disturbances. One that's possibly heading for North Carolina, and then we have one that's about to come off Africa that has an 80% chance for development within the next 5 days. So could that be maybe Sally? That's exactly what we'll be watching out for, maybe for another name storm for September. But before we get into the tropical forecast and all of these threats, we're going to be, please subscribe if you're new, hit the like button, and hit the bell notification icon so you get notified as soon as I do a video. But without further ado, let's get this tropical forecast. So here's looking at the National Hurricane Center. Here we have Paulette and Rene right here back to each other, both expected to go out to sea. Rene's expected to possibly become a hurricane rather soon, but a rather weak hurricane, maybe just a very weak category 1. And then Paulette's expected to stay at the tropical storm, but a couple more models are trying to get this to a hurricane here. But both of these will be going out to sea as a forecasted, so no threat to U.S. based on these. Here's our disturbance here that's over Africa. It's still the low pressure, but it does have an 80% chance for development within the next 5 days, and already a 50% chance for development in the next 5 days. And as you see, this could develop as early as right as it gets off the African coast, or as late as far in the MDR. So this has a pretty widespread space for where this can develop. But as you see, based on this area of development, it probably will go out to sea as well. So 3 fish storms. And then we have our disturbance right here, 94L, that is heading for the southeastern coast, most likely the Carolinas. It now has been upgraded to a 30% chance for 48 hours, but it has decreased for the overall 5 days. I believe it was at a 40% chance, but now it's gone down to a 30% chance. But the 48-hour chance has gone up, though. So it's gone down and gone up a little bit if you think about it. But this is what we have the National Hurricane Center. Let's go check out the details and satellite imagery on these storms. So here's the satellite imagery. I believe this is on Paulette. And as you see, this low pressure is kind of it's pretty open, this low pressure actually. This low pressure is really open. And we're actually starting to get some sheer and dry air in this low pressure, which is why it's expected to stay at the tropical storm and not become a hurricane. But a couple models have gone a bit more to a hurricane likely, but this low pressure is pretty open right now. You can clearly see there is some dry air and some sheer trying to rip this low pressure, make it open. But that's exactly what we're trying to see now. But we are starting to see some convection starting to blow back up and to cover this low pressure. So it's basically right here now. But as you see, it's not the most organized tropical storm. It's not, but it's trying to get overall better. As you see, before it goes black, you see a ton of blow and convection there, trying to possibly get a new center of convection after it did get opened up. Maybe very well trying to come back. Let's move my screen like that. And as you see here, for actually tropical storm Paulette, as you see, they're kind of shooting their cone more like a west turn here, but I'm probably expecting to go like that. I'm pretty sure that's what the National Hurricane Center cone is going to start showing. So yeah, it's possibly going to go just out to Bermuda, and then possibly they go out to sea. It most likely won't hit the U.S. like that. It most likely won't. But there have been a couple trends where the model tracks have shifted more to a west turn instead of going directly due north and not hitting anything, including Bermuda. So really watching out. But look, very large tropical storm wind field, and this could actually maybe help the possibility of maybe getting some hurricane winds in there. But as you see, it's expected to go due west and then kind of go northwest and then kind of gradually make its way. But I really don't think it's gonna hit the U.S. It'll really have to resist that interaction with the high pressure. But really, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of a U.S. landfall. I'm not going to rule out the possibility. There's always a possibility. I understand that's not the most likely outcome, but as you see, they still to be tropical storm as late as Monday and just going south of Bermuda here. So could it possibly become an unexpected hurricane between this time frame? That is exactly what we'll be asking. But like we know, this thing was moving very slow at 3 miles an hour at some point, I believe. So it's starting to speed up a little bit and should be speeding up a lot more in the overall coming days. But really this sheer and drier, it's going to be becoming a pretty big threat. As you see, a lot more, like I said, a lot more models are kind of heading toward that general, not due west, but like a lot more west than what they were showing like this. But as you see, This is our cone, so this is basically our cone for our tropical storm Paulette. So not going to impact the Caribbean. If it's going to impact anything very closely, about most likely be Bermuda. But like I said, models are getting this to possibly a hurricane. A lot more models, if not almost every single model that gets to a tropical storm gets it to a hurricane. We have a model getting into a hurricane as early as 60 hours. And then we have a bunch of models getting into a hurricane later on this week. Early next week here. But as you see, the majority are getting this weakening a little bit, and that will possibly be because that shear and that dryer will open it up. So this thing's at 60 miles an hour, I believe. It could possibly get down to around 55, if not even a borderline tropical storm based on the models, and then slowly, gradually getting stronger here, because this will be the time frame. This is going to be the time frame where it's dealing through a lot of shear and dryer. But if it can manage to survive that and not become a tropical depression and then become post-tropical, and it manages to go and thrive in those warmer waters, it could very well become a hurricane. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 models getting this to a hurricane now. I think we only had 3 or 4 getting this to a hurricane yesterday. So a lot more show it becoming a hurricane. It may take 5-6 days, but it could very well become a hurricane. And if there is more of a western track turn or west-northwest turn, maybe could that rise a concern if there is any for the U.S. maybe. But obviously, like I said, the most likely outcome is that this does go out to sea. But the National Hurricane Center continues to shift that this is going to go more. It's going to delay this out to sea turn. We also was like this, and then it went like this, and now it's kind of going to do northwest here. I mean, if it doesn't go out to sea until here, it's going to definitely impact the U.S. But really the question is, could it actually hit the United States? Could the National Hurricane Center continue as we get into tomorrow, show that more kind of that northwestern turn and leading up possibly to the mid-Atlantic? That's exactly the question. Obviously, it may be a little bit more of a concern. Not saying it's a huge concern, but it has maybe risen a little bit, but still not the most likely outcome. But we will continue to monitor this likely, especially if it will possibly become a hurricane. So let's keep our eyes down. Also, now we have Tropical Storm Rene, which the National Hurricane Center actually does predict being a hurricane. But as you see, this thing's actually it does have a little bit more better structure here. As you see, that low pressure has definitely got closure, and it's definitely got this counterclockwise band, or I don't even know why I did that, counterclockwise banding here. It does look very, very good here. So, I mean, I think this looks a lot better than Paulette, which could be why Rene does have a better chance to become a hurricane. But it generally just has a lot better structure, a lot better banding here. And also, we did expect Rene to be stronger than Paulette, because we all knew Paulette would interact with that shear and dry air, and then that would make conditions more favorable, and that would clear out conditions for Rene. So Rene getting stronger, becoming a hurricane, and Paulette not, isn't shocking. I think we all saw that coming out before they even got named. But yeah, as you see, Rene definitely looked pretty good structure-wise. Got the banding, has a center convection. It looks pretty close for now, and that could be because it's in a very favorable area of moisture and very little shear. But Paulette, on the other hand, is going through some rough conditions in the next 3 days. But if it does clear out, which it will, could it thrive again, or will it do what storms usually do, get opened up and die? So that could be why models are showing this getting more to a hurricane for Paulette. But Rene, it does seem to just become a hurricane and then possibly weaken. And Paulette's going to possibly weaken, then become a hurricane. So completely opposites for Rene and Paulette. So you see National Hurricane as well, showing that's going out to sea here, but becoming a hurricane at 2 a.m. Saturday, and then weakening back to a tropical storm. So it could be a very short-lived hurricane here, but I think it could be a lot longer-lived of a hurricane if it does become a hurricane. But you see, going out to sea, not even going to impact Bermuda. I mean, this one we can almost 99.99% say this will go out to sea. Paulette, we can't really say it's a guarantee to go out to sea, because we've seen this western trend of delaying that out to sea turn, that due western turn, and that could be because maybe the high pressure drags Rene instead of Paulette, because Paulette's more like right here right now. So it's gonna be dragging the one closest, which would be Rene. So that could lead to Rene going out to sea, and then that would lead to maybe Paulette doing a later turn. I know this probably won't. I know that arrow going to New Jersey probably won't happen. I'm just giving an example here, but that could be the reasoning to why Paulette's track is kind of going more west or northwest than due north, and then going out to sea. So as you see, these are the tracks here for Rene. They kind of go northwest, and then they just go west like that. That's very weird. But as you see, it's kind of the cone basically. This is basically our cone for Rene here. Let's check intensity. As you see, we only have a couple models showing this becoming a hurricane. It's really weird. The National Hurricane Center doesn't show or doesn't predict Paulette being a hurricane, but a ton of the models on here on intensity, almost all of them show this being getting to a hurricane. But then with Rene, the National Hurricane Center predicts a hurricane, and then the intensities are seeing a lot less showing a hurricane. So it's almost the complete opposite. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 showing a hurricane, and it's actually forecast to be a hurricane. But Paulette's only forecast to be a tropical storm based on the National Hurricane Center, but 10 show a hurricane. So it's really almost the opposite here. But it seems like a lot more models on Rene have shifted to a tropical storm, as you see. Like getting to maybe a high end, if not moderate tropical storm here, because this is still a 40-mile-an-hour tropical storm here. The thing is, could Paulette interacting with that shear and dryer in the next 3 days, could that make conditions a lot better for Rene, which will actually help Rene actually get to that hurricane wind, which is what the National Hurricane Center expects. That's really the question here. I think a hurricane is definitely possible for both Rene and Paulette, but it seems like Paulette's chances for a hurricane are increasing faster and are actually are possibly higher than Rene's, which is pretty shocking. I don't think we saw that happening. But both of these could be a hurricane, whether it's a very weak borderline hurricane or a strong Category 1. They could go through that threshold of 75, if not higher, miles an hour, and that's very possible. So here, look at the new 18Z model here on the GFS. It's actually not loading. It's actually stuck at 90 hours. So we're trying to see what we will have now, because I don't want this video to come at like 8 o'clock, because the GFS hasn't fully reloaded. But this is what we expect in the next 6 hours here based on the GFS. 2 low pressures, the one with the 80% chance, Rene, and then Paul. As you see, it seems like Rene is going to start strengthening a lot more, and then it seems like Paulette's going to be doing the opposite. It's maybe not weakening a lot, but just slightly weakening because, of course, that dryer and that shear. And that's going to help possibly allow Rene to strengthen a lot more and become that hurricane that the National Hurricane Center expects at 979 millibars. And then as you see, the models on GFS kind of shows that low pressure going into the MDR. It's going to be kind of doing like that instead of going out to sea. So this could very well, the one off Africa, be a threat here, 1,005 millibars. So the GFS shows it kind of going towards that general region here, and then this is actually 174 hours here. But as you see, they do at 90 hours. They show Paulette trying to strengthen back in, and that's gonna allow for Rene to actually weaken. So they're never going to be getting stronger at the same time. Whenever one's getting stronger, the other will be getting weaker. So that's kind of how it's going to be here. So these will be complete opposites. And let's go and check out now the relative humidity. As you see, there's a dryer from the west opening up Paulette, and that's going to help keep that nice amount of humidity for Rene, which is exactly why it could very well thrive. You see, there it is, pushing that moisture there, and then you see that shear's going to stay there for at least 3 days, and then it's going to continue to kind of that low pressure. Paulette's going to slowly make its way back into that big or smaller area of moisture, and that'll help expand its strength here. But guys, I hope you guys did enjoy the video. Please do not forget to like and subscribe, and bye guys.